welcome to The Shallow End. I'm Dave. Great to see you again. I'm super excited for you to hear from today's guest. He's been on before. It's Aaron at 22 Sports Cards. Today's episode is an extension of an episode from a couple of weeks back called Knowing the Price but Missing the Point. This is an episode about blocking out the noise. This is an episode about choice and perspective and surrounding yourself with the type of people and content that make your hobby experience better, not worse. Before we get to Aaron, I do need to get to a couple of announcements. First, after this episode, I'll be taking a bit of a break from The Shallow End. I love doing the show, but lately it's felt a little like work. Except podcasting is not my job. It's part of a hobby I love. It's a distraction from the stress and tediousness of real life. If you've listened to the show for a little while, you might have noticed I don't have ads or sponsors. I don't ask you to like or follow. I just like to talk. I like to talk to you and with you. I like to think about sports cards, collect sports cards, talk about sports cards. And in order to keep doing that, I'm going to step back for just a little while to recharge, focus on work, do a little traveling, and see if I can pry that one certain card away from a certain someone on Veriswap. You know who you are, and I know you're listening. Anyway, I plan to jump back on the mic early January, just after New Year. But if something gets stuck in my brain and needs to come out, I won't hesitate to drop an episode here and there along the way. Okay, and here's the second announcement. This comes from an Instagram user named Luke, who goes by @LukeJBrowning on Instagram. Next month, November, he'll be doing the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Awareness Walk. And he is trying to raise as much money as he can for breast cancer research and support. Now that in itself is awesome, but to help raise awareness and to help raise as much money as he can, he's giving away sports cards as he hits certain fundraising milestones. And we're not talking 1991 Donruss Commons. We're talking the kinds of sports cards you actually want. So, if you are so inclined, check out the show notes from this episode for a link to Luke's Susan B. Komen information and donations page. Thank you so much, both to Luke and to everyone who does what they can to help others. And with that, let's get to today's guest, Aaron. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Let's welcome back to the program, Aaron. Aaron is 22 Sports Cards on Instagram. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. How you doing today?
Good. It's great to have you back. For the people who heard Aaron the last time he was on here, he is a super duper deluxe San Francisco 49ers collector. Aaron, how is your collection going, and what are some recent pickups?
It's been going great. I'm a huge Niners fan, and I've really been focusing really on that lately. I've been really kind of honing in on really what I wanted to do. I kind of feel like I finally found what are the 5 or 6 cards per player that I really want to go after for those top-notch players. And I'm really focusing on the Prism Gold and the Prism Gold vinyl stuff. The vinyl specifically has really been jumping out to me. My last 2 pickups that you can see on Instagram are Fred Warner, the all-world linebacker for the Niners this year. His gold vinyl from 2024, which I think is my favorite, or one of my favorite Prisms that's ever really been out there. And then I also have some older stuff. So I had Eric Armstead, who's no longer on the team, but I got his gold vinyl as well. So those are kind of my 2 most recent pickups, and I got a couple on the back burner that I'm ready to post here shortly as well.
Well, we can't wait for those. I haven't really asked you this yet, but with the licensed Panini era coming to an end, do you find that the competition for the gold prisms is getting any tighter, or has it always just been? competitive.
It's going crazy, and I don't know if it's because of the end of the run or if there's more press about it or what it is, but the gold and the gold vinyl stuff is going a little bit insane. I mean, the Warner that I picked up was probably a couple $100 more than that I originally thought I was going to pay, and I probably would have had to pay 2 years ago. So that's definitely pushing up, and I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen after Panini drops and where to go and what the direction, because I feel like I finally found where I want to be, and now it's going to be a complete shakeup after the 2025 year.
Right, because this is it. We're kind of done. Last time we talked, you were talking through your strategies a little bit about how you would try to find Niners cards. But it's been a little while, and so I assume that you've made more connections since then, and your network of football collectors and Niners collectors has broadened a little bit. You seem to focus a lot on defensive players, not entirely, but mostly a lot of defensive players. Does that help distinguish you in some way, that you're almost becoming known as like the defensive Niners guy?
I don't know if I'm known that way. It's funny because the last two picks, I hadn't really noticed that myself, going more towards the defense. I feel like I have a list of specific guys that I consider my like gold tier type players. And a guy like Warner's up there, and I want to definitely find his stuff. I'm also a defensive guy. I coach defense on the high school level, so maybe that's kind of something in the back of my mind that's pushed me to be a little bit more the defensive side. So that's having Warner and Bosa and Armstead, and I got DeForest Buckner coming in here in a couple of days that kind of has that defensive push to it. So that's an interesting tape. I didn't really think about that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I think as I was just scrolling through your Instagram feed, I see more offensive players than I remembered at the first point. But I think of you, I think of, obviously I think of Armstead, and and I think of Patrick Willis, from
yes,
the past.
yes, from the goal, from the goal, yep, yeah. So that having that kind of key linebacker has always been something that I'm always big into, because he's in charge of the defense, he's making the play calls, he's the linebacker that I'm talking on the high school level. That's the main guy that I work with too. So maybe that's kind of pushed me in that direction as well. That's a really good point.
How do you stay? There's so much out there, right? There's so much out there. Now you have Topps will be getting, or Fanatics, whatever. We'll be getting the license here in a little bit. Niners history goes back pretty far. There's a rich history of defensive players, Ronnie Lott and so many others, Merton Hanks.
That's a good one.
So many great players, but also just football cards in general. There's just so much to collect. How do you keep yourself focused? How do you keep yourself looking mostly at just Niners cards?
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is that I would say maybe a year or two ago, I put together a list of like my top players, and I decided to separate them into different, what I call tiers. So there's like the gold tier players, which is the guys that like have a really big connection with me, played with the Niners for extended period of time, and they're the ones that I really go after on kind of the higher level. So I'll try to have a specific amount of cards for that specific player. And then you have kind of a silver tier player. Maybe it's a player who's been playing for a couple of years or was with the team for a couple of years. I have some good memories, but I don't have as much of a kind of a direct connection with them. And I'll go after maybe a couple of their cards. Like Armstead's a good example. Like Armstead was good for the Niners for a while, but he's not like a gold tier in my mind. So he's kind of a silver tier player. I'll try to get a couple cards of his, as opposed to someone like Patrick Willis, who would be in my gold tier, who I'd try to go after maybe 5 to 8 type of, higher end for me, a couple $100 cards that are really prestigious to me, that I have a connection with. So that's kind of how I separate them.
Yeah. And that makes sense. That makes sense. I would assume otherwise it would just be chaos in a way, wouldn't it? If you just want some of this and some of that, and hey, I want a quarterback now, and hey, how about a New York Jet, and how about some basketball? It'd be crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of finding your lane. I know the last time we talking about, I was working on a basketball card collection. It's kind of a smaller stuff, but it was fun to do, binder work, that type of thing. But I always kind of go back to my main PC, which is the Niner stuff, where I want to really put many of the funds that I have and all my kind of mental energy, and realizing, okay, what do I want to go after next? And like when Topps is taking over here, okay, what's going to be the next set of, what's the parallel I want to go after? It's going to be tough with the Superfractor, which is the gold vinyl look that I love, because there's only one of them. So that's going to make it tougher, but are there enough kind of variations in the Topps with all the different types of, I guess they call them, I'm lost for words. I guess different brands, I guess they call them. It's Topps, but it's a kind of subsidiary brand to use to go after to try to find that kind of gold vinyl super fractal look. Hopefully there's going to be enough out there.
There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of external judgment sometimes of our collections if we let it get to us. Some of us are able to block it out. One reason that we're talking again is that you and I were talking offline, or rather DMing, just sort of all the distractions that are out there and all the judgments that's out there. You seem very confident and really secure in your collection, which is just great. I love talking to collectors like that. How did you get to the point where you are now, where you're just like, this is my collection and, forget everyone else. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes back to kind of as I was raised, this idea of like just having a positive outlook on things, and it comes from my parents, and just trying to always see the positive side. And sometimes it's to my detriment. My wife will probably tell me sometimes, "Hey, I just want to complain, honey. I just want to complain, and I got to just listen to that." But I try to just see kind of the best in things. And we kind of talk back and forth with DM. The one quote that kind of stuck out to me that really hit me, the reason I think why we went back and forth a bunch was when you said there's an infection that I'm not sure can be cured. And that one was just like, damn. I don't feel that way, and I love all your stuff. I love all your content. I love the essay. It was great, and it brought up some great points and really start to think. But this idea of it not being an infection that can't be cured is one that I just couldn't get over, because I'm like, no, there's so many great things about this hobby. There's so many things that I'm able to do out of it. So much positivity. So much stuff we're able to see from so many amazing collectors out there. Like, let's try to focus on that and not focus on, the money and the $13 million car from Jordan, like all that type of stuff. And Mr. Wonderful getting in the fray, even he has no idea what he's doing in my opinion. So, I mean, this just idea of let's see the good in what people are talking about, as opposed to focusing on negativity. Cause you're right. There is a lot of negativity with all the stuff out there.
And I think what you're coming to, if I'm hearing you right, is, we have choice, right? There's a choice to how we have an outlook about the hobby. And what we're talking about is knowing the price, missing the point, which was this audio essay I did last week that got us talking, in which I definitely went more critical than I usually do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was this line, like you said, there's an infection in the hobby. But the point that you made when we were DMing, and the one that I have trouble getting out of my head now, is it's possible to ignore it, right? There comes a point where you don't have to. You can hit mute in certain ways. You can step away if you need to a little bit. You can look for the positive. And you mentioned that that's how you were raised. I've had the same conversation with my wife, where she goes, "I just want to complain."
100%, all the time, and we don't get it. Us as guy, I don't know if it's a guy thing, but we just don't understand. Sometimes we just need to shut up and let them complain, and that's just fine, and that's what we're here for.
Right. Exactly. So, as it goes with cards, how do you manage to do it? Maybe it's not a how thing. Maybe it's just innate. Maybe it's just who you are. But with so much noise, I'll use that term again, with so much noise out there, how do you choose to focus your collecting experience? I don't mean what cards you buy, but I mean the bigger part of it, how you choose to maybe curate your Instagram feed, how you decide what content you listen to. What do you do to tailor it to give you the kind of experience that you want?
I think the content is a great point, because there's so much good stuff out there, but there's so much in my noise, like you said. There's just noise out there that's just talking, and it's really about picking the right podcast to listen to, picking the right YouTube pages to listen to and watch. And the positive side is to pick the good part of it, right? So it's like you only have so much time in the day. I work, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. It's like I have a couple kids at home. There's only so much time in the day. So it's like pick the right things. And I feel like I try to test podcasts out. So I'll listen to stuff like, I loved your episode from a year or so ago where you listened to, was it 50 podcasts in 50 days or so? I can't remember what the name of it was, but that was great, because it's like you got to listen to all the different voices. But then I'm sure since then you've picked a couple, right, that you've decided to go with. And there's so many good people out there that are doing such good things. Brett from Stacking Slabs has some great content. I love his football card show podcast with Pack Nicholson. They're doing an amazing job. But they do talk about money. They do talk about the money side. They do talk about the hype side a little bit here and there. But it's like, what do I pay attention to? I'd pay attention to the two of them banter back and forth and talking about the Bears and the Colts, and also talking about the cards they're picking up. And that part is the part that I kind of take out. And I still listen to the stuff when they're talking about comps and everything, but I'm not as focused on that. Chris Hoge is doing an amazing job with his podcast, with his long form podcast / YouTube channel, just talking about his mentality and how he's going into things and how he's ranking and all that type of stuff. It just makes you think. And there's tons of other guys out there that just have this positivity that you can hear. Dylan from Double D Vintage, like if you feel like there's a problem in the hobby, just watch his YouTube page and you can just see the passion and the love that he has for it. And again, there's a bunch of others as well.
I'm glad that you brought up Dylan Double D because last night and this morning, as I was walking the dogs, I was listening to a show that he did with Shoebox, I think his name is Shane is his name, in which they were just counting down each of them like their top 26 Mike Trout cards. And as I'm walking, I'm thinking, this is what I want, right? I just want to talk about the cards. Yes. And I've been, Brett Stacking Slabs, Brett McGrath is really onto something. I think when he's been talking about it for a while now, he's actually executing it where he's doing these specialized pods, right? He's doing the football one with Pack Nicholson. I really enjoy the WNBA one with Cold Lunch cards with Caitlin.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. And there's just something about the more you can make it about the cards and having fun with it. I didn't mean to take it this way, but I'm going to bring this out as well. I'm going to take us on a bit of a detour. Right before our first kid was born, I was talking to my parents and asked my mom, trying to get parenting advice, right? And I was expecting all these things like, there are hard days, but you get through. I was expecting all these cliche types of things. And my mom just goes, I just had fun with it. And that was it. That was her entire advice. Just have fun.
Was it. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, but that's how it should be, right? It's just enjoy it. It's like I have 3 girls at home and we have tough days, but we have great days. And sometimes it's just best just have fun. Like you said, enjoy. This hobby is a place where we should be able to, separate ourselves from any struggles we're going through and just enjoy it. So how do we do that? How do we curate that enjoyment level? And it comes down to your choices, right? So I always talk about my mom because she's big on Twitter, which is very strange for how old she is, but she loves Twitter, but she often gets into the negative side. So with the 49ers is a perfect example. I used to be all over Twitter 49ers all the time. But then I realized as I go through my feed, 90% of the stuff is negative and 10% is something I want to listen to. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not going to read Twitter anymore. Nope, I'll go there for one piece of information. If I need to know, okay, is Brock Purdy playing this week? And someone's going to give me information. I'm going to go to them. And besides that, it's so much negativity. It's tough to drown out. And that's how it is for everybody. I mean, from kids that are in my high school classes dealing with negativity to anybody, our age. It's the same difference. How do we push that away and how do we focus on the good side? And sometimes it's just shutting it off and picking other people to listen to.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even, I think, you mentioned people who to listen to. Sometimes it could be people who collect things that we don't even care about, but we're just looking for a certain like a mindset, right, or an activity or somewhere they're going about it. I the first 3 or 4 or 5 weeks of the Football Card podcast that you were just talking about with Brett and Pack Nicholson, I listened to the first one, but then I thought I don't collect football cards, and I stopped for 4 or 5 weeks because I felt like I was wasting my time with it. I'm sure it was a great show, but it wasn't for me. I had decided it wasn't for me. And then about 6 weeks into it, I was looking for something to listen to. And then I listened to it again. And I was just having the best time listening to them joke and laugh about the NFL and football cards. And I realized, cards are bigger than just what's in our PC. And it's bigger than, what kind of returns we might get on them. But just being able to just enjoy the hobby, I think that's got to be 80, 85% of getting us to where we want to be within this space. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great idea. You talked about on your essay this idea of furniture, listen to a furniture podcast, to a watch podcast. And I was like, yeah, I just can't. I'm not there yet. And I don't know if it's just because there's a bunch of other sports related stuff that I want to listen to instead on the sports card side. But it's nice for you to think about that and to kind of open that up idea. And like you're opening that up to everybody else to think, hey, why don't you think about this a little bit differently? Why don't you listen to somebody else not in your lane and see what they have to say and then kind of meld it to what is going to be good for you? And I think it's a great concept.
Yeah. When do you think was the last time that you were, and if I'm putting you on the spot, don't worry about it. You can take this any way you want. But when was the last time you found yourself following the collector, maybe on social, or listening to something on a podcast that you weren't expecting, where you were pleasantly surprised and you found yourself listening to it or following something or following someone that maybe you just didn't intend to, but all of a sudden it became part of your experience?
I think it's kind of on the baseball side because like I'm a little bit of a baseball collector. That's how I was kind of raised with Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken and all that type of stuff. But I'm kind of not big in the Orioles right now, so I don't really pay attention to baseball as much. But I think it's listening to people that are talking about baseball. I also feel like Wax Museum podcast was also a big one. So I was like a little bit into basketball, but not really, and like kind of paying attention to the NBA, like finals wise. And then I started to listen to his stuff, and I'm like, okay, let me listen a little bit more. He's got good stuff. He's passionate about his cards. He goes about it the right way. His podcast is great. Let me listen to him. And I think maybe that would be the first one. I said, I'm kind of into basketball, but not really. And that kind of reeled me in a little bit. And then I started paying attention to basketball a little bit more. I haven't gone that outside my realm. I would say it's something still sports related, but that kind of hooked me.
So if somebody was looking at your collection, at your Niner stuff, some of your basketball and some of the other things, what would they see in that collection, do you think, that would be reflective of Aaron? Where if they came back to it like, oh yeah, this is something that Aaron would like. What is it about your collection that you have been able to kind of just make all about you and make it be a place that you love to look at the cards and you love building it? And what is it about your collection that speaks Aaron?
That's a great question. As I feel like just because we're always influenced by other people, like Brett's a big influence on the gold vinyl stuff. I feel like I'm more of a follower in that main PC, which kind of makes you feel a little bit like you're not yourself, because a lot of people are kind of jumping into that as well. So I don't think that really makes me unique on the gold vinyl side. I feel like when I was doing and I'm still working on them, but when I was working on my binder work with my kind of what I called mini rainbows, where I had 9 cards for each of the players, and what I do is I pick a defensive player and offensive player for what I consider the like offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, and I pick 12 cards. 9 cards to put into the binder. I feel like that's kind of me, and that you don't really see from anybody else because I do kind of a mini rainbow as opposed to the 500 million parallel rainbow. So that's kind of me. I mean, I'd hope that people would see a good Niners collection and think of me, but I don't think I'm at that level yet. I feel like there's a couple specific guys. Timmers is kind of the number 1 guy, and Nathan Oak is the number 2 guy when it comes to like who's a quote unquote legit, really high quality Niners collection.
Amazing. Yeah, Niners are one of those teams where I can think of 2, 3, 4 people off the top of my head. Like,
yep,
Ravens are another one.
Mm-hmm.
Giants certainly. Maybe not the Carolina Panthers, right? They're just certain you think of. So I imagine it's a space. I'm going to go 2 ways with this next point, right? Where it would be hard to stand out if you're a Niners collector or a Giants collector or a Cowboys collector. But then I guess the other part of that would be, why would somebody want to even stand out? Like, why is that even the point?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Why not just keep building and becoming part of the community, but also getting cards that you like? Just buying some Donruss base card of CD Lamb that's worth 4 cents that you got off ComC. I'm not trying to say that should give everyone joy, right? But at the same time, there is a competitiveness, I think, to collecting that I think can be a benefit to chasing down cards that you want, but also can be a hindrance when you start comparing yourself to others who collect something similar that you do.
Yeah, it's a great point. I wrote down a second quote from your episode, and you said, I'm not sure if it's word for word, so forgive me, but we collect sports cards of players from our favorite teams to show our fandom without stopping to ask why we even need to show our fandom or to whom we are showing our fandom. And I'm like, that was super insightful because it makes you think. It's like, why, right? So we have our why, but why is this player? But why do I actually need to post this on Instagram? Is it for me or is it for everybody else? Is it for this perception of who I am as a collector? And it makes you really think about the why behind it. And like, why am I doing this? Okay, why did I just post this? It's because I appreciate the aesthetic of it. I appreciate the player and I want to show it off, and maybe that's needs to be more the mentality. Like, I want to show off what I feel like is a part of my collection, as opposed to like thinking, oh, I want other people to see my stuff and I want to get the most likes that I can, that kind of social media nonsense. But it's a tough balance between those two, and realizing, oh, I should be really thinking about this in the right direction that I want to go in.
That's one thing I really like about your Instagram feed is you'll post a card, and first the card just pops off the screen because you've got really cool taste. It just syncs with the things that I like to look at. But there are some people who on Instagram will post an incredible card. It's like I don't know, like Ken Griffey Jr. 99 1 of 1. You're like, oh my God. And there's nothing else. It's just the picture. Right.
Yeah.
But what I appreciate about yours is that you will then post a little bit about the player, right? Like, you'll say what the card is, and which is good because I don't know what they all are and no one does. But then you'll actually talk about the player himself, where you kind of move it beyond cards, and it becomes, maybe this is the educator in you, but this is where it becomes almost like a lesson in a way, saying like, hey, look at this card. I picked it up. I love it. I want to share it. It's great having it. Now I'm going to teach you a little bit about the player as well. Was that a conscious decision, or is that just sort of what comes out when you post something?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Chris Hoge did an extensive episode on like the ideas behind his posting and how he kind of turns it into almost like an essay, talking about the specific card. And that was way after kind of how I post. But I feel like I still don't have a good feel on what do I really want to include, because I could include a lot of information. But like, am I going to be succinct enough? Are people going to read it? Like, what's the deal? So I want to just give a little bit of information is kind of where I'm at. But again, I'm still balancing what's the right piece. Do I want to go in depth? I want to give a little bit of information, I guess, that, like you said, that's kind of the teacher in me. I want to say what the card is and say, why this player's important to me. But I feel like I haven't really figured that out yet. And I feel like that idea from Chris is, like turning it into almost an essay, I feel like is a good way to go about it, to really show people that connection point. And maybe I need to focus more on that when I post to say, I've been watching this player since this and this situation. Here's the favorite game I've watched, that type of stuff. And maybe that could really help me push kind of my fandom and get people to think a little bit more about why they own the cards that they own.
Just to give people who are listening to this an idea of what I'm talking about specifically, I'm going to read just a couple of short ones of your post. This is a post you had about a gold prism you picked up of Brandon Aiyuk. And you mentioned what the card is. Great. But then you also wrote, looking forward to Aiyuk's return this year for the 49ers. He plays such a pivotal role with his pass catching ability and his blocking skills downfield. I don't think I have ever seen an Instagram post with an Aiyuk card talking about his downfield blocking skills. But that was my favorite part about it. And then the Armstead card, the gold vinyl 5 that you posted, you said that he was the 49ers definition of a big defensive end, played the run great, and held the edge. I love that, right? But it's still about the card. And I don't think I've seen anything like that anywhere. But, you mentioned that you're a high school football coach, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is something that you can bring to the card space that nobody else can. I don't know if you expect people to lock in on that part, but
that's so yeah. No, it's funny because I think the reason why I said it about Aiyuk is because my brother's also a huge Niners fan as well. And Aiyuk is he's an interesting guy off the field. And he gets a kind of a bad rap sometimes from Niners fans. But I think about all the games that I've watched, and this guy is running as fast as he can to go and knock the living, out of somebody in order to free up a run. And like, that's in my mind how I see him, not just as the great pass catcher and the crazy jump flyover against the Eagles where he jumped over guys where you've seen before, but like, that's the guy I see. And as a high school coach, like, that's what you need in your wide receivers, because high school football is 75 to 80% run. So like, you need the wide receivers and to go downfield and block. So no, that's a great point. It's funny, I didn't think about it that way, but I feel like I want to use that concept now with the rest of my posts and focus. Hey, how can I talk about the football, really like coaching football side of it, player side of it, as I talk about a specific player? But no, I appreciate that. You've kind of opened my eyes to that. Thank you for that.
You mentioned some of the types of content that you like, were, Brett and Pack for the football podcast. Chris Hoge, since he started doing the Hogecast, he talks about not just the content, but the thought behind the content and the making of content.
And I love that. I love that philosophy stuff.
How about when it's just the social side of it? Now, when it's Instagram or however else, you take your social media, it's a little bit of a different medium. What do you appreciate about that side of hobby content? What kind of social media are you attracted to?
I'm a big video guy, so YouTube is definitely a big one, and watching, be able to visualize and see the videos, I feel like it's big. I'm also big on IG, but I feel like I don't take enough time to actually read those long posts, and I feel like I should stop. I should do that. Like, I should start to go through and really listen to people when they're talking about their collections, as opposed to just scrolling and double tapping and trying to find, a story sale for a Niners card, which has never happened. It's never happened for me over the years, and I still continue to do it. Maybe that's a push, is just like, let's start to read. What are these people really saying about these cards, and how can you relate it back to your collection, or how you want to move forward, and how you see this industry?
So as we wind down here, what would you say to someone if they came and they were just feeling a little, not necessarily burned out, but just a little tired of all the noise that we talked about? They still love the cards and they still love sharing cards, but they just don't know how to focus. They don't know how to tune things out. How might you coach them or recommend to them ways that they can kind of just get back to enjoying the hobby?
I think it's thinking about this in terms of just like, who are the 5 people? So like, saying goes, and I'll get it wrong, but it's like, you are a combination of the 5 people that you surround you, or whatever that concept is. And like, taking it to cards and contents, like, who do you really want to listen to? So there's all these people that are doing all this stuff, but like, if you had to pick 5, who would you really want to listen to? Whose collection do you really respect? A couple people whose collection you respect the most, and then whose kind of mentality behind collecting do you respect the most? And focus on those 5 people. And maybe you make specific like Twitter lists of those 5 people to listen to them, or you focus when you're get that downtime and you're opening up your phone. Hey, I want to listen to this person today. I want to listen to these 2 people today, because I respect them, and they're going to put me kind of in the right mindset when it comes to collecting. So that would be my suggestion for someone with that type of issue.
Aaron at 22 Sports Cards. I always love talking. Thanks for coming on.
It was a pleasure as always, Dave. Thanks so much for all the content and all that you do. I will keep on listening.